Hi, I'm Cameron Watts, minister of Fairlawn Avenue United Church, and this is the fifth and final session that we are offering online about Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. This video is a distillation of what a group of us talked about in the last couple of days. Now again, before you keep going, permit me to remind you, the book is a product of its time. It uses non-inclusive language. I will try to adjust that a little bit when I can. But as an obvious example, women and those who do not identify as binary also search for meaning. Second, I'm going to put some questions to you, and I will pause, and you can pause the video as long as you want to talk about those questions with yourself. Let your mind and your heart work with them, or anything else that comes up. Finally, feel free to pause the video if you need a break. The book is rooted in Frankl's experience in a Nazi death camp. The content is not always easy. I will, as in other videos, offer some time for self-care at the end. Now, the book concludes with some letters and speeches written by Frankl beyond the book itself, and an afterword by William Winslade, and it's Winslade's afterword that I'm going to begin with. Frankl speaks for 1.5 million people. Not really, but it is a responsibility that he felt and that he bore to bring meaning to the lives and the deaths of people who died in concentration camps. At the age of 16, he was invited to do a lecture on the meaning of life, and this precocious person early on gave evidence of what was going to be important to his life. He says, "It is we ourselves who must answer the questions that life asks of us, and to these questions we only can respond by being responsible for our existence." This became the cornerstone of Frankl's professional life and professional identity. So, how would you have answered the quest? Get up in front of people for a few minutes and talk about what you think the meaning of life is. When I put this to some of the folks who studied the books together, these are some of the insights they offered. The meaning of life is to get through what you have to get through. The meaning of life is relationships through the process of life, which add to meaning. The meaning of life is to experience new things, to meet life's challenges, to understand the responsibility of life as you go through that comes your way, to give, to care, to love, because we're built that way, to be true to our values, to leave the world a little better, to try to do no harm, to be optimistic and take responsibility, to see the best in people, even when you have to forgive them sometimes. Small things matter. To ask, what can I do today here? To look around and see. This may be a time when we have to stand together again, when we were aware this week that some of us felt very overshadowed by the results of the United States presidential election. Frankl already had begun to formulate an argument that the quest for meaning is the key to mental health and human flourishing. As a prisoner, he was forced to assess whether his own life had any meaning. His survival was a combined result of his will to live, his instinct for self-preservation, some generous acts of human decency and shrewdness, and as Winslade offered, it also depended on blind luck. But there was something more needed to overcome the deprivations and the degradations of the camps. An inborn optimism, humor, ability to be psychologically detached from what's happening, brief moments of solitude, inner freedom, and a steely resolve not to give up or commit suicide. Frankl realized he must try to live for the future, and at the core of this was his wife and his book. Here's another question for you. Who or what would be at the core of your determining to live for the future? And again, here are some insights from our conversations. Family, ditto, ditto twice. Friends, people we don't know, doing what we can when we can. People, the people we're with, the transitoriness of the experience of life. Someday this will be over and the future will be different, to be needed by others. To find faith in prayer, to release myself to possibilities, to be intensely curious about what is next and to keep exploring. My grandchildren, feeling a responsibility to the rest of the world as an inborn philosophy. And finally, to understand that death frees us, that we will face it, and that there's a peace that passes all understanding that will help us face that death. I have to say that some of us were a little surprised at the revelations in the afterword because they did not come up in his own writings. For example, Frankl was in the same camp as his father, and he managed to obtain morphine for him to ease his pain and was able to stay by his side at the end of his life. It must have validated his decision that we talked about in the first session, where he determined not to emigrate when he had the opportunity. He determined to stay with his family in Austria. Here's another one. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning in 9 days. Now in it, he offers a critical mandate. He does not tell people what to do, but why they must do it. He believes strongly in reconciliation rather than revenge. He said, I do not forget good deeds nor carry a grudge for bad ones. When he was released, he engaged in a flurry of professional activity to restore meaning in his own life. Again, a question for you. When you feel like your life has lost some of its meaning, how do you restore it? And my group answered this: gardening, having somebody to talk about the day with, somebody to help you understand, to meditate, to read poetry, spend time with family, to get out in nature to find humor, laughter, escapism, to have something entirely different to do, a task, a mission, a calling. The meaning of your life is to help others find meaning in theirs. All right, that's enough about the afterword. We're going to look at his letter to the Borners that was written in September 1945. Very shortly after he was released from camp and as he's writing his book. And he writes to these friends, I'm tired. I'm terribly sad. I'm lonely. I have nothing more to hope for and nothing more to fear. I have no pleasure in life. I have only my duties. I live out of conscience. Now, duties create purpose. They aren't always a burden. And maybe having them is good, but in this particular moment in life, it is hard for him to find sustenance anywhere. In spite of everything, there are more things he has to do. He's able to speak of the despondency, the terrible time, the loss. There are things that do not provide him with sustenance the way they used to. It's like he came back to a previously happy place and looked around, and everything that had made it happy before was lost. Everyone, everything. And so after his release from camp, he describes his sorrow and how he is progressing to becoming human again. He's being restored, but it's a terrible journey. No success, he says, can make me happy. Everything is void. Everything is vain in my eyes. I feel distant from everything. Sometimes we need permission to feel awful. I mean, he wrote this letter while he was writing his manuscript. In the face of all this destruction, he writes, it is possible to fall deeper into an even more boundless suffering. There remains perhaps nothing more to do than cry a little and browse a little through the Psalms. It's interesting to me that that's one of his go-to books, the prayer book of the Hebrew Scriptures. And I wonder, when things are difficult for you, what is your go-to book? Some of my folks answered A Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh, Rod McEwen's Listen to the Warm, anything by Henri Nouwen, or poetry of any kind, or John Newman's Prayers for Peace. You have your own, the book that you grab and that you go to when you need to go to something familiar and that helps you see yourself through the day. He wrote another speech or talk in 1946 called Do We Live Provisionally? And all I want to say from this is that he writes, the glorious responsibility of time is to keep rebuilding. The glorious responsibility of time is to keep rebuilding, knowing difficulties to be borne and the opportunities we hold in our hands. At another talk in 1949 called In Memoriam, he spoke particularly of the people he was in camp with and who died, but focused on 2 physicians, 2 doctors who did die in the camp. And he wrote of them, only words of longing came from their lips, and words of forgiveness. For what they hated and what we hate is never people. Hate the system that made some guilty and drove others to their death. And I have to say that's difficult. We should hate the system and not the people, but that system came from somewhere and was validated by someone. Regardless, Frankl wants to say that every deed is its own memorial. It is indelibly stamped in the past. Humans are capable, people are capable of remaining human, to be forgiving, to learn to trust, to be responsible, to bring justice, despising deed and not the person, to experience the full range of emotions and then choose wisely how to respond, to suffer, which may be our lot, but it is not necessarily what shapes us. Suffering may even teach us not to be revengeful. Finally, the willingness to listen to the people around us, listen to the people we don't want to listen to ourselves, to listen to the Spirit, I will add, and that there's this dialogue that comes in that helps us bring meaning to our lives and helps us remain human. The last thing I want to offer from the book is something that he wrote at the anniversary of the camp at Turkheim, and he was invited to speak in 1985. This was a memorial. And one of the things he said in it was a quote by Rabbi Leo Beck, written in 1945 as part of a prayer for reconciliation. Only goodness will count. Only goodness will count. As our self-care time for this last session, I want to read for you Nan Merrill's version of the 132nd Psalm. It's from her book, Invitation to Wholeness. So get comfortable, and I hope at some point you'll be able to ignore my voice, because this is about silence. Enter into the silence, into the heart of truth. For herein lies the great mystery, where life is ever unfolding. Herein the divine plan is made known, the plan all are invited to serve. Listen to the music of the spheres, in the resounding silence of the universe. May balance and harmony be your aim, as you are drawn into the heart of love. Those who follow the way of love with calm and faith-filled intent know that all is working toward healing and wholeness. And may the power of love lift you from the limitations of fear and ignorance into the arms of freedom. May the peace of the Spirit bless you and lead you on life's journey. Be not afraid of the silence, for wisdom's voice is heard there. As you follow the light, you become gentle and kind. You come to live in the light and see through love's eyes. Children enter into the world radiating the Spirit. Learn from them of innocence and simplicity. Learn to cooperate with the unseen realms, to see beyond the veil. Wise are those who learn through silence. Learn to listen well. For beyond the silence and stillness within, you will come to know a profound and dazzling silence. And herein lies the music of the spheres, the harmony of creation. Enter into the sacred altar within. Converse with the beloved in sweet communion. Blessings of the great silence be with you as you help to rebuild the heart of the whole world with love. Thank you for hanging in through a not always easy but ever hopeful 5 weeks. If you're interested, we'll be doing a brief Advent study of John Shea's book, Starlight, Beholding the Christmas Miracle, all year long, and that will be posted in December. You're welcome to join us if you want, even in person. Contact the church, Fairlawn Avenue United, for more information. Thank you for opening your life to the possibilities of hope with us. Please, if you want, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Most important, be good to you.